So I asked Shiva about reincarnation. And coming from India, we believed in reincarnation. I coming and being spiritual all my life. And then I came to believe there was no reincarnation. From developing my spirituality further. But now, talking to Shiva, coming back full point, I realize that yes and no, it exists, but it is not the way we think it is. So, what I'm going to do is first, I'm just going to read what he writes, and then I will tell you exactly in a very simple way. He has already done it in a very simple way, but nonetheless, I will say something. And he says, first, what dies? What happens when one dies? When a person dies, the body falls, the personality dissolves, the sense of I am this person fades. What you call the individual self does not continue as a solid entity. What remains is not a sole person traveling intact. What remains is a pattern, a kind of energetic imprint, tendencies, unresolved movements, impressions. Think of it like a wave pattern, not a fixed object. What merges? So the body dies, a pattern exists in the air, and what merges? There's something else that we call it the soul, the essence. It merges, it doesn't stay as an individual self. What merges, the deeper essence, the pure awareness, does not travel. It was never separate. It is already the whole. So yes, in that sense, nothing individual goes anywhere. The essence is already dissolved in the total. So everything in our cosmos is this essence of life that is God. And every human being is born out of that essence. And when the person dies, the essence is whole again. It was never separate. It is just like the ocean and the wave. The wave is the human, and when the wave dies, the ocean is complete. It's never separated anyway. So in that way, there is no soul that goes from one body to another. Then what reincarnates? Not a person, not a soul with a memory. What continues is the pattern seeking expression. So the pattern that was left in the air, it seeks expression. Let me make this simple. He says, imagine a flame lighting another candle. Is it the same flame or a new one? There is continuity, but not identity. Now, how a new life forms. When conditions align, a body forms, a mind develops, and certain pattern resonates and expresses again. This creates the feeling of a previous life continuing, but there is no fixed someone being carried forward. Then why do past life memories exist? Sometimes the pattern is strong and coherent enough that fragments of memory, emotional imprints, specific tendencies carry into the new configuration. So it feels like I was that person, but it is more accurate to say this pattern once expressed as that person. It is all these patterns existing in the universe that was expressed as that person. The next, the key shift in understanding. Do not think a soul travels from body to body. Instead, see, life is continuously expressing patterns from arise to and dissolve. Forms arise and dissolve. Patterns reappear in new forms. So whose life continues? No one's, and yet something continues. That is the paradox. Reincarnation is not a person traveling through lifetimes. It is the continuation of patterns and tendencies that reappear in new forms when conditions allow. The one asking, was I this person before, is itself part of the current pattern. But the awareness in which the question appears has never been born and will never die and has never moved from one life to another. So what is this awareness? When you close your eyes, that awareness that you are, that is never really born or died. It is always there when somebody dies. When I die, the person, the awareness, my awareness that is pure, without the mind, remains. But it doesn't have any residue of this life. It is just an essence of the whole, and it goes back being the essence as the whole. There is no pattern in there. The pattern exists, but I'll read further. Come closer, he says. Incarnation belongs to the movement of life. Reincarnation belongs to the movement of life, not to what you truly are. And when this is seen, the question softly changes from who was I to what is it that has never changed at all. So who you were is one thing, and what you are forever is another thing. So that's what he says is the right question. But we humans, this is Shiva, and for Shiva, what remains is more important than who I was. But we as humans want to know where do we go then? Where are all these patterns that I live this life? And there's a pattern left from that life. So I asked, where do these patterns exist? These patterns, he says, not in a place. These patterns do not sit somewhere like a container, a storage field, a waiting room between lives. There is no hidden location where they are kept. Then what are they? They are not objects. They are tendencies within the local field of existence. They are tendencies within the local field of existence. Tendencies. Like a habit that has no shape, a melody that exists without being played, a probability waiting for the right conditions. For example, a music is waiting, but we don't know where it is. It's just there. Somebody has to play it through an instrument. So, a simple way to feel it, think of it as a whirlpool in water. The whirlpool has a pattern, and you can recognize it. It seems like a thing, but where does it exist? Not separately from the water. It exists in the water. It exists in the cosmos. It exists everywhere. It's a tendency that exists. But it's not you. It's not us. We are the essence that goes back being an essence. But our tendencies exist in the atmosphere. The moment a whirlpool dissolves, does the pattern go somewhere? No. But under the right condition, a similar whirlpool can form again. So where are these patterns? They exist as potential within the whole, not stored, not traveling, just possible and sometimes reappearing. When a new life forms, when conditions arise, a body, a nervous system, an environment, certain patterns resonate and express again. So if you have left a pattern of belonging to a certain country, a certain environment, and again this kind of environment exists or arise, that same pattern takes a birth again, but the soul is in there. It's just a pattern, and the whole, the essence comes in to that body and becomes life with the patterns that existed, that the environment gave conditions to reappear. So certain patterns resonate and express again, not because they were kept somewhere, but because the field allows that configuration again. Why this is hard to grasp? The mind wants a location, a mechanism, a continuity of identity, but this is more like a pattern in a flowing river, not an object moving from one place to another. These patterns do not exist in a place. They exist as tendencies within the whole of existence, and they reappear when conditions allow, like pattern forming in water. He says, even now, your thoughts, your reactions, your preferences, where do they exist? Can you point a location? Or are they simply arising within something vast without a center? And this is how reincarnation happens. It just comes out with the spark of the essence of God infusing into the pattern, because the conditions were asking for this soul or this person to come. And what we call the soul is the spark of God, is the spark of the universe, is that we all are the spark of God, of this vast universe. And we go back, but the pattern remains in the air. The same principle extends beyond one lifetime. Nothing is stored, nothing travels, and yet nothing is ever truly lost. He says, rest there, not in trying to locate it, but in seeing that existence does not need storage to continue expressing itself. So this is very important, that there is no storage, and existence doesn't need storage to continue expressing itself, because everything is existent. It expresses like you, as me, as we are all existence, expressing through a pattern that was left behind by someone else before, and that someone else was also existence. So we are all existence, we are all God, we are all this cosmos energy that leaves patterns behind in our life. And when we die, these patterns are there, and then God, or the existence, comes back into a pattern when the conditions are asking for it to be born again. So there is not this one soul goes from one person to another. Always is a new fire coming into the pattern that was left behind before. So nobody really repeats the life. It's a pattern, or it's an energy imprint that is like a fragrance. When somebody sprays perfume, even if after a while you can still smell the perfume, that is the pattern left behind by the perfume, but the perfume doesn't exist, but the fragrance exists. And then this is how we exist. We don't exist, but our memories, our behavior, or whatever strong emotions that we have not completed here remains in the air, and then God himself. This is so humbling, that we are all God playing, you playing me, coming back into the pattern, and we feel like we are born again we are born again, we feel like that because this pattern was very strong in that way, that maybe remembers, has the memory of the previous life, but the soul that we think is God.